What's going on, guys? Justin here. And in this video, we're going to go over the entire show rate training. So whether you're looking to improve your show rate is great, but you're looking for a couple golden nuggets, this is going to be the video for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to break up this training into two sections. Number one is defining and tracking your show rate, and number two is improving your show rate. We'll show you the three stages that we do this in. Stage 1 and 2 are quick fixes, and if your show rate isn't improved by stage 1 and 2, then we'll dive into the root cause, which is stage 3. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, first place we're going to start is defining your show rate. A show is defined as someone who has booked a call and has showed up to the call. And if you want to find your show rate percentage, you're going to divide the number of shows by the calls on your calendar that morning. Now, let me dive into a couple of subsets of your show rate. Let's talk about no-shows. No-shows are defined as someone who just does not respond and doesn't show up at all. So these are subsets of the overall show rate. The second one is reschedule. So this is someone who has rescheduled their appointment that they had today to a later date. A cancellation is someone who's reached out and just canceled the appointment. So the lead, the prospect themselves, had canceled the appointment. Now, all of these are, again, subsets of your overall show rate. And the reason why you want to kind of identify these and maybe even track them is to understand why these would even happen. So for example, we had a client that his show rate wasn't all that great. And what we did is we dived in and we tried to figure out like what is causing the show rate. We did a handful of the stages that we're going to go over here later on in this training. And one thing that we uncovered was that there were a lot of people that were rescheduling. And what we noticed was that they were sending them a rescheduling link via text message and email on all of the confirmations and all of the reminders. And so what we did was remove the scheduling link from the last few messages that were sent out, not inviting them to reschedule. So what we saw was that rescheduling rate went down and their show rate went up. And another client had a ton of cancellations. And so what we were noticing was that there wasn't really a lot of value in your sales reps or your confirmation messages or the video that they saw after they booked the appointment was not really tying in the value of why they should show up. So what we saw was that they were canceling their appointments a lot, right? So how do we define no-show, reschedule, and cancellation percentage? No-shows are defined by the number of no-shows divided by the calls on the calendar. Reschedules, the number of client reschedules divided by the calls on the calendar. Cancellations, the number of client cancellations divided by the calls on the calendar. Now, what is a reasonable show rate? Now, our KPI is anywhere north of 70%. Now, that can be higher, it can be lower, anywhere between 10% plus or minus, depending on your audience and what you sell in your offer. If you're in B2B, if you're in B2C, are you new to the market? Is this a market that is highly commoditized? Those are all things that can affect your show rate. Now, I will say, if you go through the three phases that we're going to go through later on in the training, 90% is attainable, but it does take work to get there. Now, that's how you define your show rate. Let's talk about tracking your show rate. The best way to do it, we've tried to do this through automations and through CRMs, but the best way that we found is to track this manually so that you get the most accurate data, because there's things that can happen that the CRM can't necessarily pick up. So the data that you're going to need is going to be very difficult to be able to pull automatically from the CRM. Sometimes it requires custom coding. It becomes expensive. So the best way that we recommend to do it is just to track it manually. It takes 3 minutes from your team to fill in the data. And the best way that we recommend to do that is by implementing what we call an end-of-day report. Now, this is something that each of your sales reps fills out at the end of the day. And they do this for every single call that they have completed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what an end-of-day report looks like. So the data that you need is the data of the report, calls on the schedule, calls showed, calls no-showed, calls rescheduled, and calls canceled. All of these data points is something that your sales reps are going to enter in manually in the end of day report every single day. Then you're going to take that information and you're going to track it. So let's talk about tracking. So what I recommend is you track things on the company level and the individual level. So all the subsets of the show rate, you track on the company level as well as the individual level. So let's talk about how you analyze data. Now, if you're trying to improve your show rate and you're implementing a lot of the strategies that we're going to talk about later on in the training, depending on where you're at with your call volume is going to determine what time frame you want to analyze the data and statistics to see if this is making an improvement or not. Now, if you're less than 30 calls scheduled per week, you want to analyze on a 30-day call data set. So what I mean by that is you're going to wait until you have at least 30 calls tracked, either no-showed or showed, to determine whether this is effective or not. Now, if you have more than 30 calls per week, you're going to look at a 3-week time frame. Because if you have that much volume coming through, there could be issues with media buying, quality of prospects coming through that could swing your show rate. Now, we've defined and identified how to track your show rate. Let's talk about now how to improve your show rate. So you're going to improve your show rate in 3 stages. Stage number 1 is the technical element. That is a quick fix. Stage number 2 is a human element. So that's a quick fix as well. Then if stage 1 and 2 do not fix your show rate, then you have an underlying foundational root cause to why your show rate is as low as it is. And normally it's around the value. So stage 3 is the value element. So let's go ahead and dive into each of those stages. We'll start with stage 1, the technical element. First, we're gonna start with automation reminder. So this is when someone books an appointment, all the confirmations and the text messages and all the automations that go out to get someone to show up. Now, what most people do is whatever calendar system that they use, they'll make a couple of tweaks and kind of set it and forget it. That's not what we want to do. We've tested this. We've tested a lot of reminders where people get upset and they don't show up. We've tested minimum reminders where people forget about it and don't show up. So this is kind of the sweet spot after 5+ years of testing show rates, working with 2,000+ clients and kind of analyzing all the data. Now, what we have is an email confirmation and text message that goes out immediately after they book an appointment, a 24-hour call by an individual before they actually show up to the call. So like either your sales rep or a setter or someone dedicated to give them a call. 4 hours before the call, you're going to get a reminder email. Then an hour and a half before the call, you're going to get a reminder email and text message. Then 15 minutes before, you're going to get an email reminder and text message with the Zoom link included. Now, one thing to note is your automated messages that are automated, like the reminders, you want to put automated in the text messages. Because what you'll see here later on in a couple of the other strategies that we're going to talk about is to try to add in something that's a little more personal. It looks like someone actually manually reached out to them. So that's the automated reminders. Let's now dive into the next thing that you can add in to increase your show rates is a confirmation system. So I already touched on this a little bit. When we send the automated message that goes out that seems like it's coming from an individual that says, hey, I just want to make sure that you were able to put this on your calendar. That is a form of a confirmation system. Now, the other thing that you could do is you could say, hey, reply back yes to confirm your appointment, right? So this acts as a double confirmation. And the reason why we want to do that is because subconsciously it ties down the commitment to show up to the call, which is why you will see a higher show rate. The next thing that you can add to increase your show rates is a 3 to 5 day scheduling window. So why do we want to have this? What most people do is they set up their calendar and they just use the out of the box settings. Most of the time it's a 7, 14, even 30 day booking window, meaning that they can book in the next 14, 30 days. And so what we normally find is that the longer the timeline goes out that you book out for, the lower likelihood that you show up to the appointment. The reason being is because when you're going through and you're seeing an ad or you're going through and you're speaking to somebody and you're booking an appointment, you are going through the emotions to try to figure out how to solve a pain or to try to achieve a solution. Now, the more time that goes by, you're going to exit the emotional state that you were in, which is going to decrease the chances that you show up to the call because you don't remember the value that call associated with or how big that pain point was. So that's why you want to condense that window down to as short as possible. So what we recommend is a 3 to 5 day window and strategically doing it like this. So on Monday, we recommend that it's as early as Monday as possible, Monday AM, as soon as you clock in or as soon as whoever clocks in that is setting the calendar up for you. You can even do it Sunday night. But Monday, the idea is to set it to 3 days. So Monday is going to count as one day, Tuesday and Wednesday. So they have 2 days to be able to book an appointment. Then on Thursday, you're going to set the date window then now to 5 days, because if you're on Friday is going to count as a day, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So then it's going to wrap and you're going to have Monday and Tuesday as appointment spots open up. Now, one thing that I will say is one thing that will affect your show rate is your availability of appointment slots that you have. If you only have 2 or 3 appointments on each day, you're forcing someone to book an appointment, if they do book an appointment, to that spot. That might not be the most ideal time for them. So if you're running a sales team and it's just you taking calls, maybe you need to think about hiring another sales rep. If you have 1 sales rep or 2 sales reps and the availability spots aren't there, then maybe it's time to hire another sales rep. Now, the next thing you can add in to increase your show rates is application questions. So if you look here, just the presence of an application in the process will increase your show rates. The reason being is because it increases the quality of the prospects going through and adds in a little bit more friction. So let me walk you through what I mean by an application. So if someone sees an ad, they go through like a sales page and then there's a call to action to book an appointment. You can add in an application, which is, could be anywhere between 3 to 5 questions. It could be like, hey, what's your timeline to solve this problem? Where are you at in your business? How much revenue are you making? Or if you're B2C, it's how many bedrooms do you have in your house? What type of shingles do you have, right? So there's an application there where they're answering questions. So the person that's going to submit that application is more committed And you can also use the application to disqualify people who would not be a good fit, and maybe, lower quality application that wouldn't even show up to begin with. So the mere fact that you have an application is going to increase your show rate. I will say one caveat is that it will also increase the quality, but also decrease the volume. So the more friction that you give people to book an appointment with you, so the more steps or the hoops that they have to go through, it will increase your cost per appointment, but will also increase your quality. But it will decrease the volume, meaning that not as many people will go through and go on to book an appointment. But that may be a good thing because they might not be the best fit for you. I recommend that you add this step in. This when you're adding in friction, you're adding in this application, when you're going through the process of, hey, I got appointments on the calendar, my sales team's meeting with people, but the quality is not that great. So let me add in an application to increase the quality and get people through the sales process that are actually a good fit. Now, when you do that, you will also see there is an increase in show rate. We'll go over a handful of questions that you can add in here. Some, you can add in disqualifying questions. For example, if you have a below 680 credit score, please do not continue. Or if you're not an established business and you're not making at least $10,000 a month, do not continue. Now, one other thing that you can add in the application question is what we call an integrity tie down question. So toward the end, right before they enter in all their information, there's an example here. You can say, hey, we respect your time and we believe that you're a person of integrity who respects ours. Now, with that sentence, you're challenging that person's integrity. Then you go on to say, are you going to show up to the call at the date and the time that you've selected? So what you're saying here is like, hey, I believe that you're a person that's not going to ghost us. You're a person of integrity. You're going to show up. So you're challenging that person's integrity. Subconsciously, they're like, yeah, I'm a person of integrity. I'm going to show up to this call. And then they manually select yes. Now, this is also something that you can do when you go on to call someone for confirmation. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is our fake forward emails. So this is a little tricky to follow. So let me break it down by bullet points. So after someone schedules an appointment, what normally happens, as you've seen before, they'll typically receive a confirmation email. Then what you do is you then add another email to your automated confirmation sequence that is the fake forwarding email. Now, let me break that down, what that actually looks like. So what it is it's made to appear as though it's coming, like either you or the closer have forwarded the email to an assistant and you're instructing them to contact you for additional information or action. So it appears as though it's coming from an appointment setter or an assistant. So you're looking at the email. Let's just say I see it and I'm like, oh, okay, I got this appointment tomorrow at 4 p.m. Then this is what it appears to be. I'm forwarding it then to my assistant and I type it out and say, hey, do you mind following up with them and asking them, X, Y, and Z? And then they then reply and say, hey, just reaching out because X, Y, and Z told me to reach out. So then now the email appears to be coming from an assistant. That's why we call it the fake forward email, right? The intention is to create the impression that the lead has scheduled the appointment and then you or your closer has reviewed the appointment, forwarded it to the assistant, then the assistant is now reaching out to them, right? The key is to prompt the person who scheduled the appointment to then take further action, which then reinforces their commitment, right? So what you're doing is you're fabricating a little bit, but you're creating then an opportunity for them to reinforce their commitment that seems like it's natural and it's manual. And you're not just relying on like confirmations and the basic things that everybody else is doing. This is something that is disguising the reinforcement of their commitment, right? So this could involve, things, for example, like, hey, what are we trying to get them to do to take further action, right? This could involve confirming their phone number, sending them like a pre-call survey for their business, right? Things like, what have you tried to lose weight? Or, what shingles do you have on your roof right now? How many rooms do you have in the house? You can ask them to watch a video, respond back, what problem did they specifically think that is the biggest issue for them? Because you can then now come to the call. You could obviously say this in the email, but hey, let me know what the biggest problem is because we have a bunch of assets that we can then provide you on the call, right? And then ask them to either, or you could ask them to upload then a specific document that's related to the call itself. A lot of times, like insurance people will do that. Like, hey, if you can, just give me your, X, Y, and Z medical records and then upload that. Or if it's solar, you say, hey, upload the last 3 electrical bills, things of that nature, right? So you can create a fake forward email, send that to them, and then now you're disguising, you reinforcing their commitment in a different way than anybody else is doing. All right, so that's going to wrap up stage 1, which is the technical elements. You can add those things in and see an increase in your show rate just by doing those things, not only doing those things, but also doing those things the right way. So now let's move on to stage 2, which is the human element. So the first thing that we're going to cover is our confirmation tie down. Now this is very similar to the application question that we discussed earlier. It says, hey, we believe you're a person of integrity. Now that's something that is done online. That's something that's done on the application. This is something that you can do when you call them up, either after they book their appointment. What you recommend is that you call them within 15 minutes after they book their appointment. As soon as they book their appointment, after 15 minutes, you call them. That shows an increase in show rates, and you can use this confirmation tie down. Or you can use this when you call them 24 hours if they have not then confirmed their appointment up to that point. You give them a call either the morning of, if it's a PM appointment, or if it's an AM appointment, you give them a call the day before. You can use this confirmation tie down. The way that we're going to use this is toward the end of the call. But let's just say you're an appointment setter, or you're someone that's confirming the appointment for the closer. Right? You say, okay, great. That's all the questions that I have. Now, have you booked for X, Y, and Z date time? Or you can say, if you're the closer, hey, thanks for confirming your appointment. Just really quick, we got you booked down for date and time. Then if you're the setter, hey, I'm going to go on and pass on this information to the growth consultant. Or if you're the closer, obviously you just skip that. We're going to send you I would recommend that both the setter and the closer say this. Hey, just a heads up, we're going to send you a couple of reminders, because you're talking to them. They're confirming that they're going to show up. And you don't want them then to be upset because they get another text message or an email that says, hey, don't forget to show up, right? So just give them a heads up. Hey, you're going to get a couple automated reminders for the meeting. That's going to give you the link to the call. Now, aside from, and this is the big key part, right? This is the confirmation tie down. Now, aside from a family emergency, do you mind just letting us know for like whatever reason you're not able to make the call? Because, these, and then you could go on to say, because these calls are highly sought after, and there's a lot of people that are showing up to the calls, right? Or you could just leave it like this. Oh, hey, listen, aside from a family emergency, do you mind just giving us a heads up if for whatever reason you're not able to make the call? And a lot of times, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say no. So what that does is subconsciously, it double confirms that they're going to show up to the call, right? You say, okay, great. That's all I have. I hope you have a great day, and you end the call, right? So that is the confirmation tie down. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is the personal-ish booking message. Now, we've already talked about this in stage 1 in the technical element. What I recommend is that if you're using the fake forward email, write the message as if it's coming from your assistant. Now, what this does, obviously you want to be consistent with that person reaching out, because if you remember in the fake forward email, it's as if the sales rep or the individual taking the call forward it to their assistant. The assistant's now reaching out to confirm a couple of things. So why would then you or the sales rep be then texting them at the same time? So you want to make sure that everything is consistent, right? And this also increases the status frame. So the individual that you are meeting with has an assistant, and so that now that person is of a higher status. Now, what I recommend that you do is you wait 16.3 minutes, which is in that automation. And then also you only send this out between the times of 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. because it wouldn't make sense if you send a message that says, hey, just saw your appointment come through at 3 a.m. Then they're going to kind of catch on to like, this might be automated. So make sure you set that between 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. The next thing that I want to talk about is pre-call engagement. Now, what we found is that if you get in touch with somebody, or if somebody confirms, or if somebody texts you, there's a higher likelihood that they show up to the call. So what you want to do is you want to build rapport with the prospect before the sales call. That actually increases the show rate and increases the close rate, right? So what you want to do is you want to try a text, email, and calling them. You want to try to figure out which is the platform that they like to communicate with. Because if you text me, chances are I'm not going to see it. If you email me, chances are I'm not going to see it. But if you call me, I get a notification, right? Now, a lot of other people, their text and their phone are put away, but their email, because they're working, is going to be the way that you get in touch with them, because they're going to check their email every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, right? So depending on the channel that you use is going to determine how you should reach out to them, right? The goal is to get them to respond to the pre-call engagement. Now, this pre-call engagement, if done correctly, increases your show rate, right? I will say, though, do not overdo it. One thing that we found with trying to add in all of these things, and you'll get a checklist toward the end of this training. If you look at all of these things, you got to just take a step back and just look at a 30,000 foot view. It was like, would I want all of these things to happen? And if I'm implementing all of these things, in what order should I do this, right? I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to, we give a recommendation of amount of confirmation and text message emails. Someone might go to think, well, maybe I should add in 5 more. Now that might be overdoing it. You might be annoying them. And we've had plenty of messages that says, dude, you are just totally going too far with this. If you're anywhere in the neighborhood of doing this for my clients, or if you're helping me build this process out, I don't want anything to do with that. And you're annoying people away where they don't show up. So it could negatively affect your show rate. And so what we recommend is you just give them a call, send them an email, a text message, and you create a reason to actually reach out. Don't just try to say, hey, I just want to confirm that you're going to show up, because they've already got that text message. They've already gotten an email that's trying to get them to do that, right? So you can say something like along the lines of, hey, real quick, I got a couple of quick questions. I saw your application come through, or were you able to watch the video? What'd you think? What were the biggest problems? So you mention something, and then obviously, there's a question that you have for the pre-call engagement, right? Next thing that we're going to talk about is personal reminders. Now, I recommend that you do not try to automate your personal reminders, right? Obviously, we have the automation confirmations and the reminders that go out. They're labeled as automated. And what we want to do is we want to try to send out messages. That first message is just the same message that we found that works the best. To try, hey, did you get that appointment on your calendar? You can tweak that and try to find something that will engage them. But obviously, there's messages that you send them to, if they haven't confirmed their appointment. There's messages that you send them the day before, the morning of, to confirm their appointment. I recommend from your sales team, or for you if you're doing calls, do not try to automate the other personal reminders. Because what we found is that it always leads to people thinking that it is automated. And if they think it's automated, then they won't respond. And remember, if we get people to respond, they have a higher likelihood to show up. So we are trying to get them to respond. The best way to do that is to add a little bit of a human touch. What we found, and this is not just in show rates, but then also in like engagement rates and lead to booking rates, is that if you add in a human element to it, and if there is a human touch, it increases conversion rates. Lead to booked appointment rates, show rates, close rates. So do not try to skip on this, all right? What we want to do with the personal reminder messages is send a personal message to the prospect before the meeting. All right, try to customize the message as much as you can to them so they do not think that it is automated. And what I recommend, this is like hey, just want to make sure that you show up to the meeting tomorrow. Just a reminder, quick reminder. I'm personally touching base, right? Heads up, there are going to be other automated messages that go out. This is me personally touching base, right? So for the personal reminder messages, what we recommend is that if you have AM appointments, so morning appointments, you send those reminders the day before. So if I have a Monday morning appointment, what I would do is I would send a message the day before, so on Sunday, relatively later on Sunday, but still on Sunday. Now, if I have, for my Monday appointments that are in the afternoon, I'm going to send those personal reminder messages Monday morning. So these can be emails, text messages, or phone calls. We've added in a script that you can use. Hey, contact first name, preparing for our call tomorrow to help you X. So this is another thing that you can add in, and reminding them on why they're going to show up to the call, to help you solve X, Y, and Z problem, to help you get X, Y, and Z solution. So remind them. Are you still good at 9 a.m. EST? Do not write out 9:00 space capital EST, because that seems as if it is automated, right? So write 9 lowercase a.m., maybe even lowercase EST. You want to seem like this is coming from a personal message, like it's coming from an individual, not some automation, right? Now, if you're using the fake forward message, make sure that this is coming from your assistant, right? So we've added in a script there that you could kind of tweak that a little bit. So the next thing we're going to talk about is personal reminder videos. It's the exact same thing as personal reminder messages, but instead of a phone call, a text, or an email, you can record a video and then send it to them. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is cancellation message if they have not confirmed. So this is a little bit more of an aggressive tactic, but if someone has booked an appointment, they got the confirmations, they've gotten all the reminder messages, you try to call them, you try to text them, and for whatever reason, they're not responding. Then what we do is we either leave a voicemail, an email, or a text message, and we say something along the lines of, hey, this is Justin with Convergently, haven't heard from you, and it looks like we haven't confirmed your appointment, to help you and remind them why they booked their appointment in the first place. And if we don't hear from you by the end of today, we will cancel your appointment and send over a rescheduling link. So this lets them know that this is the last time that we're going to be reaching out, and if we don't hear from you, your appointment will be canceled. And so there will be some people, no matter how much you try to make the messages seem personalized, they will think that it's automated and they could just not respond and then just show up to the call. That is a percentage of people. But then there are other percentages of people who will see that, not think that, but think, okay, yeah, I know I need to show up, but they got other things on their mind. So this acts, when they receive this message, subconsciously, what they're going to do is they're going to at least have to address this. So they're going to have to spend a couple of seconds, or maybe a couple of minutes, determining, do I want to show up to this call? then they're reconfirming to themselves that they are going to show up to the call. If they reply back, yeah, sorry, yes, I'm going to show up to the call, that increases the show up rate. Now, what I recommend is that you send this within some time that they can respond, and then you can also cancel the appointment. So for example, you can set it around 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. And then if you check one last time around like 6 or 7, they have not responded, then you cancel the meeting. Then sometimes people will get an email confirmation that they've canceled or a text message confirmation that they've canceled. And they're like, oh, I didn't think you were serious. And then you can just rebook them right back in that spot or rebook them for another day. Right? So that's the cancellation message if they have not confirmed. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is late multi-point touches. And now let's say you left them on the calendar and they're, no showing you. Now, what I recommend is that you wait at least 3 minutes after the call is scheduled. So if it's 1 o'clock, I'm going to wait till 1:03, wait for them to kind of show up. Then I'm going to send them a text message. I'm going to send them an email in this order. Then I'm going to do what we call a bulldog call. So I'm going to call them. If they don't answer, I'm going to call right back to try to get through a couple of like phone softwares that don't allow first calls to go through. And on that second call, I'm going to leave a voicemail. Then what I'll do is I'll wait around for another, till about 1:15. Then if 1:15 rolls around, then I'll mark them as a no-show. Then we have automations that go out and says, hey, for whatever reason, it looks like you missed your appointment. If you like, you can reschedule here. And it gives them that link to be able to reschedule. All right. So that's the late multi-point touches. Next thing I want to talk about is the 5-minute post-booking phone call. I touched on this a little earlier, but what we found is that if you can get someone to engage and you can add in a human element to that, the show-up rate increases, right? So if someone is self-booked a call, meaning like they haven't spoken to someone from the sales team and actually booked a call, what you want to do is you want to try to attempt to call them within 5 minutes of booking that call. Now, if you're not available to do that, I recommend that if you have a team, assign someone to do that. So for us, what we do is we assign our appointment coordinator. There's a notification that whenever someone books an appointment, she gets alerted, and her job is to call them within 5 minutes. And what she is doing is then now confirming that appointment, and then maybe even asking a few clarification application questions. She's then using that tie down question that we addressed a little earlier, and then reminding them of why they're going to show up to the call, letting them know to watch the video, letting them know that they're going to get a couple of reminder messages. And then she's going to end the call again with a tie down message that we talked about. So that's the 5-minute post-booking phone call strategy. Now, the next strategy I want to talk about is adding value to the call. Now, this is a little bit more of an advanced strategy, and it's a little bit more nuanced on how you can do this depending on your business and your offer. But what you want to do is you want to try to add in more incentive of why they should show up to the call. You want to try to add in as much value as you possibly can. So you want to try to clearly explain what the value is and what they will take away from showing up to the call. So now think of ways that you can share with your prospect and communicate to them on the value that's going to be given to them on the call itself so that you can increase your show rates. All right, so that wraps up stage 2. That is the human element. So we've talked about stage 1, which is the technical element. That's a quick fix. Stage 2, this is a human element that involves scripts and you or your sales team. That's usually a quick fix as well. Not as quick as fix as the technical side, because it involves people, and getting those people to execute usually takes a little bit, but it's still a quick fix. Now, if for whatever reason you've implemented these, you've analyzed the data, and it hasn't gotten your show rate to where you want it to be, the next stage that you're going to go to is stage 3, and this is what we call the value element. So it's a little bit more advanced. It's really hard to dial in, and it takes time. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. Now, when we are thinking about the value element, we need to first back up and think about why people don't show up to calls to begin with. There's 2 reasons. Number 1 is they totally forget, or number 2 is they choose to do something else, right? So they did not forget. They knew the call was happening, but there's something else that was way more important to them than actually showing up to the call, showing up to your call. So how do we make them show up to the calls? Number 1 is that they totally forget. Hopefully they don't totally forget because of all the things that we've implemented. Now that leaves number 2 is they choose to do something else. And to address that, we have to give them a reason to show up. They must feel that showing up to your appointment is the most important thing out of anything else that they could be doing. That your call is more valuable than any other activity. They must have enough perceived value for the call that it outweighs any other thing that they could do. Whether it's answering emails, making phone calls, getting distracted with another meeting and pushing this meeting off, they need to understand that this call is more valuable than anything else that they can choose to do. So how do we create value? First, we must understand that value is different to everybody, and it is also different to an individual now than it is in a week from now, in 3 months from now. It's fluid. What I determine as valuable right now might not be as valuable to me next week, right? So if we break this down, this value, if we break this down into actionable items that we can understand, then we can tackle how to create value. So to create value, what I want to do is I want to focus on 3 elements and how it relates to the sales call. Number 1 is perception. Number 2 is hopefulness. And number 3 is excitement. Let's define these. Perception, they need to perceive something is valuable to actually show up to the call. Then they must be hopeful. They must feel hopeful about what they'll gain from the call. Excitement, they need to be excited about the potential transformation. So there's perception, hopefulness, and excitement. Now we must have all 3 of these to create value. So what I want to do is break down every single one of these individually. Let's start first with perception. So what should they expect to happen on the call? That is a question that you must ask yourself. What are they perceiving, right? Are you defining clear expectations for your audience on what is going to happen on the call itself, right? What specific benefits or outcomes can they anticipate? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that they know exactly what they are going to look forward to on the call. Now, these are examples that you can use throughout the entire process in a video, in a text, in an email. So here for perception, schedule a call to uncover the top 3 strategies for doubling your sales. Or discover how a new roof can save you more money on energy bills. Discover how you can unlock the full potential of your sales team. Discover the proven strategies for losing 10 pounds in 30 days. So you can see the perception or what they expect to happen on the call are clearly outlined, right? So let's talk about hopefulness. What will they discover, learn, see, feel? What would they get from the call? Right? So what you want to do here, the thing to focus on is to build hope by highlighting what they will then learn. What's the thing that they're going to take away from the call? And then create a sense of intrigue and value that makes them eager to attend the call. It makes them eager to attend. And what you want to do is you want to build this hope by highlighting the benefits and the outcomes that they can expect by not working with you, but by attending the call. Remember, we're trying to get them to show up to a call. And we're trying to do that by creating some sense of hopefulness of what they're going to achieve. Now, for example, you'll gain exclusive insights into industry secrets that can improve your overall output, or gain insider tips on negotiating best price for roofing contractors. Another example could be find out how successful entrepreneurs are doubling their revenue in less than a year. And another example is gain access to personalized workout plans tailored to your fitness level. All right, so that's hopefulness. Now let's go into excitement. Now, what you want to ask yourself is, what transformation will make them excited to show up? What will this help them achieve overall with what they want? What is the end goal for them? And how is them showing up to this call going to help them achieve that end goal? And so what you want to do is you want to foster excitement by emphasizing the transformation that they will experience. You want to connect with them emotionally by showing them how attending will lead to a significant personal or even professional growth. Or it could be by achieving the solution that they're looking for or alleviating the pains that they have. Now, a couple of examples here for excitement. Transform your business and achieve your dreams by applying these proven techniques. Another example is imagine the peace of mind knowing that your home is protected from the elements. Picture your business growing exponentially as you implement these innovative marketing tactics. So again, you're helping them understand what is going to happen, the end goal or the transformation. Another example is imagine fitting into your favorite clothes and feeling confident in your appearance. All right, so that was perception, hopefulness, and excitement. Let's now dive into connecting the dots. Now, by setting clear expectations, you help them look forward to something specific on the call. By building hope, you create a mental investment that makes them interested to join in the first place. And by fostering excitement, you connect with them emotionally, making attendance to the call feel necessary for their growth. So that is how perception, hopefulness, and excitement is used together. Now let's talk about where we can add in these elements. So a couple of places that you can add this in, obviously, is in your ads, your VSLs, your video sales letter, or maybe even the sales letter page. You can use this in all of your communications pre and post booking. You can also use this in your post booking content. So any content that the prospect sees after the meeting, after they book their appointment, through a funnel, you can send them like a thank you video, or you can send them a reminder message with a video inside of it, and giving them a reason to show up to the call, right? You can use this in your confirmation email, your confirmation text, and your personal reminders. Another more advanced strategy to help you increase your show rate is creating undeniable proof. So with this, you want to remove any doubt that they think you cannot help them achieve the result that they are looking for. So what you want to do is you want to create undeniable proof that can help them achieve what they want or solve their problems. Now, the way that you can do this is by sharing your case studies, your testimonials on the thank you page or in the funnel, in the ads. You can send them an interview that you did with a client in the same space or a similar space before the call. You can also send screenshot proof of results that you've gotten for past clients in your personal reminder messages. So those are just a couple of ways that you can inject undeniable proof into the entire sales process. Okay, as we wrap up, I want to make sure I go over a show up rate checklist that you can go through and make sure that you implement everything in stage 1, the technical element, stage 2, the human element, and stage 3, the value element. All right, that wraps up our show rate training. We've showed you how to define your show rate. We've showed you how to track your show rate, the 3 stages that you can implement to improve your show rate. Now, I promise you, if you use this show rate training, go through all 3 stages, you will see your show rate drastically improve from where it's at today.